When you think of the great fortunes of the Philippines, names like Sai, Ayala, and Lopez immediately come to mind, don't they? These are families who built their empires right out in the open for everyone to see. But what if I told you that some of the deepest, most enduring roots of wealth and influence in the Philippines actually lie in a hidden history? A fascinating story of pioneers and magnates who arrived on these shores centuries ago, quietly building fortunes that would profoundly shape the nation, all while staying out of the spotlight. This isn't just a tale of old money. It's the story of visionaries you've probably never heard of, and the powerful historical forces that brought them here. They weren't conquerors, they were survivors, merchants, innovators. They fled wars and revolutions, seeking refuge in a place few others in their world would even think to look. This is the story of how they introduced the very first automobile to the Philippines, pioneered modern retail, and built the precursor to the nation's flagship airline. And it's the incredible, almost unbelievable story of how, in the darkest days of the 20th century, these same families partnered with a charismatic Filipino president to turn the Philippines into an unlikely sanctuary, saving over 1,000 of their brethren from the horrors of the Holocaust. This is the story of the Levy, Bacrac, and Frieder families. Their legacy is written in the steel of old buildings and in the thousands of lives they touched and saved. And it's a story that has remained in the shadows for far too long. The Levy brothers. Imagine this. It's the 1870s, a world caught in the turmoil of the Franco-Prussian War. In Alsace-Lorraine, 3 Jewish brothers, Adolf, Charles, and Raphael Levy, find their world turned upside down. Urged by their mother to escape the conflict, they packed their ambitions and looked for a new beginning. After a failed attempt in America, they looked across the Pacific to what seemed like the edge of the world, the Spanish colony of the Philippines. In 1873, they landed in Manila. What did they carry? Not trunks overflowing with gold, but 5 crates of merchandise they couldn't sell in California. It seemed like a meager start. They didn't even begin in the capital. Instead, they traveled to Iloilo, a city booming from the sugar trade. There, on a street called Calle Real, they opened a small shop with a bold name, La Estrella del Norte, the Star of the North. In a colony where life was slow and traditional, La Estrella del Norte was a window to a different world. They sold Swiss watches, Parisian perfumes, and other European luxuries. For the Filipino elite, this was more than a store. It was a direct connection to modernity. The shop was a huge success. The brothers soon opened a grander main office on the Escolta in Manila, which was, for its time, the 5th Avenue of the Philippines. La Estrella del Norte quickly became its crown jewel. But the Levys weren't just merchants. They were cultural and technological importers. They were selling the future. Think about the Philippines in the late 1800s, a world of horse-drawn calisas. Into this world, the Levy brothers introduced a series of stunning firsts. They brought in the first bicycle, a marvel gliding down cobblestone streets. They imported the first phonograph, bringing recorded music into the homes of the wealthy. In 1899, they pioneered the introduction of the moving picture machine, a magical precursor to the cinema that would become a national passion. And then, the most transformative innovation of all. In 1904, Levy Hermanos brought the very first automobile to the Philippines. The sputtering engine, the impossible speed. It was the arrival of the 20th century, delivered by a family of French-Jewish immigrants. And they did it all so quietly. With no formal synagogue in Manila, their business offices on the Escolta served a dual purpose as a place for high holiday services. It was a commercial hub, but also a sanctuary. The Levys assimilated deeply into Filipino society. Adolf Levy married a Filipina named Benita Enriquez, and their descendants became part of the country's cultural landscape. One of their direct descendants is Jesusa Sonora, better known to millions as Susan Roses, the beloved queen of Philippine movies. Through her marriage to Fernando Poe Jr., the Levy bloodline extends even to Senator Grace Poe. A family that started as refugees had, within a few generations, produced descendants at the very heart of Philippine culture and politics. It's a testament to their foresight and the enduring power of quiet influence. The American empire builder, Emil Bachrach. Fast forward a few decades, the Spanish-American War ends, and the American flag now flies over Manila, signaling a new era. With it, another Jewish pioneer sails in, a man who would build a commercial empire of a different kind. His name was Emil Bachrach. Arriving in 1901, Bachrach is considered the first American Jew to permanently settle in the Philippines. He came with about $850 in his pocket and an insatiable entrepreneurial drive. While the levies specialized in European luxury, Bachrach focused on American industry and mass market appeal. He saw the future, and it was on four wheels. Securing the Ford Motor Company franchise, he founded Bachrach Motors. His vision was audacious: put the nation on the road. He brought in fleets of the iconic Model T and other American brands. Where the Levies had introduced the first car as a novelty, Bachrach turned the automobile into an industry. But he didn't stop at the ground. Bachrach looked to the skies. He started the Philippines' first commercial aviation company, the Philippine Aerial Taxi Corp, or PATCO, in 1930. This small airline was the direct precursor to what is now Philippine Airlines, Asia's oldest commercial carrier. He was also instrumental in creating the forerunner to the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines. From the ground to the air, Bachrach was laying down the infrastructure of a modern nation. His influence was immense, and he was a close friend of Manuel Quezon, the future president. But Bachrach also wrote checks for something far more intangible: a profound sense of belonging. As the Jewish population of Manila grew, swelled by Russian Jews fleeing revolution, the need for a formal place of worship became clear. Bachrach, with his considerable wealth, financed the construction of the Philippines' first synagogue. Completed in 1924, it was named Temple Emil in his honor. This wasn't just a building, it was the institutional heart of the Jewish community, a declaration that they were a permanent, established community. Tragically, the temple was destroyed in the Battle of Manila in 1945, but the community it had solidified would face its greatest test and perform its most heroic act in the years just before the war, thanks to another set of brothers. The humanitarian magnates, the Frieder brothers. In the 1920s and 30s, the center of gravity in Manila's Jewish community shifted to a new family, the Frieder brothers. Alex, Philip, Herbert, and Morris were from Cincinnati, Ohio, and they'd built a fortune in the cigar industry. They managed their hugely successful Helena cigar factory in Manila, and they were incredibly well connected. Their passion was poker, and their regular games were a gathering of the most powerful men in the Philippines. Around their card table, you would find not just the Frieders, but also Colonel Dwight D. Eisenhower, American High Commissioner Paul V. McNutt, and the magnetic president of the Philippine Commonwealth, Manuel L. Quezon. It was over cards, cigars, and brandy that a plan would be hatched, a plan to save thousands of lives. As Hitler's menacing shadow stretched across Europe, the Frieder brothers began hearing first-hand accounts from German Jewish refugees. Horrified, they decided they had to do something. During one of their poker games, they turned to their powerful friends and posed a question to President Quezon. Could the Philippines offer a safe haven? Quezon, a devout Catholic, was deeply moved. He didn't just agree, he embraced the idea with a passion that would defy international indifference. At a time when most of the world was closing its doors to Jewish refugees, Manuel Quezon declared an open-door policy. This is where the poker game coalition sprang into action. The plan was audacious. The Frieder brothers, leading the Jewish Refugee Committee of Manila, took financial responsibility for the refugees. Quezon provided the political will, even offering his own land for a refugee settlement. And Paul McNutt used his diplomatic power to find creative ways to issue visas, navigating the restrictive U.S. immigration quotas. Between 1937 and 1941, This alliance managed to rescue around 1,300 Jewish refugees from Germany and Austria. They were called Manilaners, a new community of survivors given a second chance. This infusion of talent wasn't just charity. It was an economic shot in the arm. Refugee physicians opened new clinics, and skilled artisans brought new industries. Kazan had an even grander vision of settling up to 100,000 refugees in Mindanao. But the Japanese invasion in 1941 brought the rescue to an abrupt halt. Ironically, because the refugees held German passports, the Japanese, allied with Germany, did not intern them along with American and other allied civilians. It was a bizarre bureaucratic loophole that likely saved many from the brutal conditions of internment camps, though they still endured the horrors of the occupation. The legacy of the Frieder brothers is not one of buildings, but of lives. Thousands of their descendants are alive today because of a conversation that started around a poker table in Manila. The supporting architects. While the Levies, Bachrachs, and Frieders were towering figures, they were not alone. Their success was part of a small, tightly knit community where business and social responsibility were deeply intertwined. To truly understand their impact, we have to look at the supporting architects. One of the most important was Leopold Kahn. A contemporary of the Levies, Kahn was instrumental in managing La Estrella del Norte, eventually becoming its president. He became a major figure in the business community, serving as president of the French Chamber of Commerce. Kahn married into a Filipino family, and despite being a born Jew, his philanthropy was so profound that in 1934, he was awarded a papal knighthood by the Archbishop of Manila, a rare honor for a non-Catholic. He represents the deep integration these families achieved. Then there were figures like Morton I. Netzorg. He arrived from the U.S. in 1911 and became a representative for the Jewish Welfare Board. He also acted as the local representative for the American Jewish Joint Distribution Committee, the same organization vital to the Frieder brothers' rescue efforts. The Netzorgs were also Thomasites, American teachers who helped establish the public school system, shaping a new generation of Filipinos. Men like Kahn and Netzorg demonstrate that this influence was a network. Kahn's leadership solidified the commercial power of the Levies. Netzorg's work helped create the social safety net the Frieders would later rely on. They were essential threads in a tapestry of influence woven quietly into the story of a nation. From the glittering storefronts of the Escolta to the desperate docks of war-torn Europe, the story of the Philippines' Jewish families is a saga of ambition, innovation, and profound compassion. The Levy brothers arrived as refugees and became purveyors of modernity, their legacy quietly living on in the bloodlines of Philippine pop culture and politics. Emil Bachrach, the American empire builder, laid down the literal infrastructure of a new era, from the tires on the roads to the wings in the sky, and gave a scattered people a spiritual home. And the Frieder brothers, over a game of poker, transformed their commercial influence into a moral one. They led an audacious rescue that placed the Philippines on the right side of history, creating a haven when the world had turned its back. These families were outsiders who saw opportunities others missed. They were a people with a long history of survival who, when faced with the ultimate test, chose to help others survive too. Their impact is quiet but significant. They were the quiet pioneers, the hidden pillars of a modern Philippines, whose blueprints are only now being brought into the light. Their story is a powerful reminder that history is often shaped not by the loudest voices, but by the quiet, determined hands of a few visionaries. And it leaves us with a question. What other hidden histories, what other secret architects are waiting to be uncovered in the foundations of the nations we think we know? If you found this journey into a hidden chapter of history as fascinating as we did, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the stories that secretly shaped our world. And let us know in the comments, what other hidden histories should we investigate next? Thank you for watching.